Welcome to Homage. I'm here with one of my first bosses back when we were all younger, still look fantastic. Ava Jordhamo. She is, I want to make sure I get this 100% correct. President, Operations, Publicist Group, Marketing Services, US.
You got it.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Good. So today is pretty special. Ava, we have a few moments that I'll take us back to that Ava probably doesn't remember, but we're like,
Because she's so old.
no, you said that, not me. These were like pinnacles of my career. But what I will start with today is a moment to thank you. To thank you for taking a chance on a I'm a lot more humble than I used to be, although certain people in my life will not say that. I've been through a lot more highs and lows than I used to. When I was in my early to mid 20s, I was extremely brash, um, extremely confident in my abilities. I hadn't yet gone through some of the rigors in life that I needed to. And one of the most humbling moments, which this literally, I can still feel the sweat beating up on my forehead, was my first presentation for Scion with Jim Farley, I believe at the time, who's
Yep.
now the president of Ford.
Yep. CEO, I think.
CEO of Ford. Okay. So at the time, Jim Farley was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, was a young up and comer who basically launched Scion into the
Yep.
world back in 03, 02, 03. My first business trip, I'll never forget it, going to the Four Seasons Beverly Hills back in the day. I get there, we're doing the presentation, and some of the nights that we had as a group of like 20 people, my first year with Ava was when we had to basically change all the demographics for Toyota, Lexus, and Scion, like total ground up. She's like, come on to the team. It'll be great. I'm like, let's do it. And all I remember was the night before hurling into the toilet at the Four Seasons Beverly Hills. I was just so nervous. But what I will tell you is that night put me on the beginning of my journey or partially on the beginning of my journey of where I am today. Because up until that point, I had never been in a position to be that scared in my life. And I think a lot of how we get through life now, good, bad, or indifferent, my whole perspective on things has changed, because when you put yourself in a position like that, the only way you're ever going to succeed is through failure. And I didn't fail that day. I was super nervous, and I know I probably like danced my way around the presentation, but having that opportunity, the minute we got into the car, like I exhaled when we left the building from that, I was like, I kind of made it, kind of did something.
You did make it.
I kind
You
of
were
did
great.
something today.
I totally remember that, by the way.
I that was probably the first moment in my professional career that the moment was too big. And for somebody who was pretty young and confident and had been through, at that point, felt like I had been through a lot of things, that was saying something. So thank you for the opportunity to put me in positions where today, a lot of what you'll be surprised as we go through this, a lot of the techniques that I use with our team today were techniques that you and Peggy showed me how to be, you know, working hard through a negotiation, but being fair about it. You know, like one of the first things I ever learned when I got to Zenith was you're gonna work hard on this negotiation, but both sides have to win. There's two people. There's two people that are involved in this, and it served me really well today. So for that, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for coming on today, taking a part of your weekend, to spend this with me. Tell us a little bit, I guess, to start, how you got into the ad world, because for me, like I can go through your bio, like there's press releases out there. If you search Ava, she's the most humble person you'll ever meet. There's reams of awards and things that you've done and accomplishments and pioneering moments. How'd you get into the business and what made you all these years stay with it?
Well, um, I was fortunate enough to stumble into something that I liked with a bunch of people that I liked. And I the reason I stayed with it was just that I've been, similar to what you described, I've been fortunate to earn my way into or be given opportunities to continue to grow and to continue to do different things. So way back when, I knew somebody in school that I got the job and I went through the training program and I thought it was interesting, but I wanted to be on the buying side. So when a job opened up, I went there. And that was at the time Saatchi and Saatchi, which was a really long time ago, and I'm just going to leave it at that. And then a job opened up in the national side. That's when I met Peggy Green, and it evolved from there. But I think, like I said, I was fortunate that things were fluid enough that as I got bored or as I got tired, I was able to move into different roles and continue to learn. And my journey continued in the same company, but in different directions.
And to paint a picture for the audience, because I stumbled my way into advertising too, like being a history major coming out of school, I couldn't get a job. And I had a friend who worked at, Media Edge CIA. I don't even know if it's called that anymore, but it's one of those things where it was like, hey, come interview to be a media buyer. And to paint the picture of the advertising industry back in like the mid 90s, early 2000s, the landscape was vastly different than it is now. So to have somebody like yourself stay in an industry for that long.
It's interesting now because our company has so many different training programs and we do so much more recruiting for the types of roles that I would have loved to have had a chance to go after when I first came out of school. So it's nice to see that. But that really wasn't an option when way back when I was first looking for a job.
When you started, because again, one of the big things that always, and maybe I have a glorified view of like my time in the big agency world. One of the beautiful things that our department had at the time, which was like national broadcast.
Yeah.
Now I believe it's video, I would imagine.
Video investment. I mean, the names are different, but it's the same thing.
Back then we had radio, television, at home. It was very different. But one of the things that I always loved about coming to work, and work was not easy. There were moments in time where we were pushed very hard, but the close knit, it was like a family. It's kind of like what we were, back in the day. A lot of the people that, Sadida and Sal and Neil and like Tara and Hank and like all those people that you're still friends with on social media and you still get birthday, wishes from. And it's crazy to think that when we came in, and at the time, we probably, with all the accounts we had, there was probably 100 people in national broadcast, from the top to the bottom, starting with Peggy down to the bottom. She knew everybody by name. I remember her coming through every single person and hey, like down to the most junior person there. And that's what always brought you back. You'd have to, you busted hump, and you were one of the biggest things that you taught me was to be detail oriented. My people cannot stand when I say close the loop, follow up with an email. Don't just call somebody. Like, you never know, or call somebody. Don't just follow up an email because you never know what's going to happen with that email. Those things transcend the leadership that I try to bring to people today at DSM. And I attribute a lot of that to you. And the one of the biggest things that one of the biggest things that you brought me, and the reason why I feel like our company is wildly successful, was very early on having women leadership. There's certain things that, and this is not like a sexist thing, or like, I've come over my experience to understand there's certain things that I'm good at. And as my dad used to like to say, there's nothing wrong with being the ugliest house on the block. I know what I do well, but I have a female CFO and a female COO now that run point on the things that they help me to be a better overall leader in the company. And I feel like having them at my side now, one for 6 years and one for 4 years, it's helped transcend the company overall, because I got a very early understanding of what it was like to have like strong female leadership that had no problem. Again, it wasn't about like a man versus a male versus female thing, but it was like, when you spoke, we listened. When Peggy spoke, we listened, because there was a lot of common sense and intelligence and wisdom that came behind those words. So they had like a big, I guess what I'm trying to say is they had a really big impact on me. And now it allows me to, like, when Zinka and Charlene do their job, I get out of the way. I'm just like, I got you. Like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, and we'll all be, we have disagreements. And Lord knows, back in the day, we worked a lot of hours together. Everybody had their disagreements, but we had a common goal. And that was the beauty of like working on a Toyota. One of the other moments, and I want to bring this up because I'll never forget this moment, because I think it was the impetus for me to ultimately want to start my own company. Back when you made the call, it was like a Saturday in July when I left Zenith to go to FX and came back. You made that call to bring me back as a supervisor to work with Sal on Toyota. And that was the moment that I felt like I felt like I'd made it, like to get asked by, I know you're going to be like, whatever, dude, but when you get asked by someone like you to come back to do something and to work with a team like that, it meant a lot to me. And when you say like making it in the world or doing whatever it is that you need to do to feel validated, it was a point of validation in my life. I'll never, like, I don't even think it took like 10 seconds for me to be like, yep, coming back, I'm good.
I totally remember that conversation. I was so happy that
It-
worked out.
yeah. And it was one of those moments, again, to be able to work through, if there was a group at Zenith at the time that, if you were going to make it in your professional life, like, it was hard. There was minute, there were some nights of sleeping in the office doing what we had to do, but it ultimately got me to, an associate buying position, working on Jim Beam and Puma and Boston Beer for a hot second. That was another dream moment, getting to go up to Boston and sit in that room with all the boxes of beer. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, at like 26, I'm like, I've reached heaven. But those moments are ones that stand out. Um, and I guess my second question is like, given that time that I had there, and again, maybe it's glorified in my head, but I felt like we were a family. And what about you and Peggy made that sort of dichotomy happen at a big agency like that? Because it didn't feel like we were 100 people.
I think you're right. I think one of the things, there were so many things I learned from Peggy, right? But one of the things that she taught me really early on, and it just kept going throughout the time that we worked together, was that it was really good to teach people through immersion, right? So bringing that 100-person or whatever the size of our group was at the time together for training moments that you just couldn't learn anywhere else, right? So when we were doing a negotiation, having people in the room
Mhm.
was a really, really critical way of getting people to learn what their role was, so that you were sitting there hearing a conversation that was really highly confidential, really important, really intense, sometimes really stressful,
Mhm.
but it was getting in your head so that when you had to have a conversation like that, maybe it would be years later, but you would kind of know, all right, I've heard that before, I know what to do. And it was, you wouldn't even realize at the time maybe that you were learning. You might be sitting there thinking, I could be happier if I was out to dinner with my friends, You could even be really frustrated that you were sitting there. But years later, when you were calling on that conversation, you would realize that valuable lesson that you learned. And it was an interesting thing. Um, I think it brought the group together in a way. There was closeness just from having survived that. And I hate to think about like a boot camp kind of thing, because it's kind of a bad analogy, but in a way that that closeness came from getting through that intense time.
Yeah, I can remember nights in your office, there was like 10 people in there. It was
Yep.
like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and you know, you, um, to me, I don't know how others felt, but it was like, it was a privilege to be in there, to, to be able to get to hear those conversations. Um, because you always left feeling like, again, back in those times, like in your mid 20s, like I was a Teflon Don. Like nothing could hurt me, nothing could touch me. And you get out of there and you'd be like, what the hell just happened? Like, oh my God,
Right.
like that was crazy. And you're right, like some of those moments were super intense. Um, Many of those moments, as you build your own business, and again, a big point that I want to make here, and I don't want it to get lost on it. All of those moments were super important to have from a professional standpoint, but from a life standpoint, now that, you know, we're all grown up and have kids, and, like those moments, a lot of the moments that I got, I try to tell my kids. I have daughters now that see me at work and see what I do, and Luca as well, and they're like, we want to do this. And I'm like, guys, what you see here when you come into the office and it's all cool and you get to play Nintendo, and we have a pool table and whatever, that's not real life. That is not how cutting your teeth in the real world works. Like it took a lot of little level steps to get to this point where other people, and I think this is a really big point because it's something that to this day made me want to do this episode with you, is that when I was in the place that the people that work with me now are, there's a level of trust that I had in you, that I knew that no matter what, like, we had our moments. We might have had some disagreements. We might have had like some long days together, but you had my best interest in mind. There was always, you guys always had, Peggy, you, no matter who it was there, always had our best interest in mind. That didn't
Yeah.
mean it was going to be easy.
Well, it's work.
It's work, but no matter what it was, like if it was a lesson about putting POVs together. The woman sitting on the other side of this camera right now was the woman who actually taught me how to put a polished POV together, and went through multiple rounds of iterations and revisions to have me get to a polished product. But now to be able to say that to somebody else, it's of great value to me. It's what I preach to the 15 people that work at DSM, that no matter what happens, we'll have our disagreements. We need to take care of one another, and that to me is something that you really taught us early on. Like, it ain't going to be easy, but we're all going to stick together through this, and we're going to get through it. We'll get
Yeah.
through it. Um, Tell me about details. One of the words that always, well, for me, I'm not a detail guy. I was never a detail guy until I still am not. I still need a lot of work on it. Um, but tell me about where the detail part came from, because you don't accomplish as much as you have without being detail oriented, making sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And tell me on your journey as you get to a more managerial level, how has that changed? Like when you're managing people, you can't. One of the things that I'll give you an example real quick. One of the things that I had to learn going from a senior buyer to a supervisor was letting go of details and letting
Right.
go of things and actually watching people fail and helping them to do it. That was part of the journey for me. What was it for you? Why, how have you been able to keep that in balance?
It's tough to find that balance. I think you're right, right? As you get more senior in your career or just in life, you have to learn to let go of the details, and when the details are important, and having kids certainly teaches you that. You cannot control everything. Life is chaos. Um, I think my dad taught me how to dot my I's and cross my T's and spell those things that were important, um, and taught me discipline. I think it does impact the way people see you, the way people understand what you're trying to communicate. That said, I think in certainly in business, you need to know when to trust your gut and to go with your gut, because you cannot always, if you focus on the detail too much and get too lost in the weeds, you're not going to see the big picture. So there's to your point, there's a balance.
Mhm.
Hard to let go. It's hard to delegate as you get further up in your career. um, I think it's something I still struggle with. I think finding that balance on a daily basis is one of my biggest challenges.
So, in closing, one of the biggest things that I want people to take away from today's episode, if you will, is the allowance of getting to of having a lot of accomplishments, but also in the journey of getting there and the importance of that. Because whether you're at Publicis or whether you're at DSM, there is a journey that takes place. And I don't think that you can get to being, I think it's one of the hardest things for young people today. Everybody kind of wants to start at the top. Like there's many different things and there's many different experiences, and there's certainly a whole heap of failures that go into ultimately being successful. And then what is the definition of that success? Um, when I started this, it was merely to, there was a better way to do it. In my 38, in my age 30 year, I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I want to try it. And I had an amazing wife who was like, oh my gosh, Lord help us all. All right, go and do it. Um, yeah, but in closing, I guess that journey for you, and what would you leave for younger people today coming up, whether it's in advertising or being a chef or whatever it may be? Like, what is the one lesson that you will leave with young people that has helped you the most over the course of an amazing career?
One lesson. Wow, that it's tough to distill it into one lesson. I think it's so important to try and meet people where they are, and sorry, there's barking happening.
No worries.
Um, just try and push yourself. Don't give up on yourself. I think it's really important to keep growing. Um, have confidence in yourself.
And I will tell, and I will, vouch in real life here for Ava in terms of what she's saying, that I actually lived it in terms of pushing yourself and putting yourself in positions of, you know, it's not like just cliche. Put yourself in a position to be scared. Put yourself in a position to be uncomfortable. Put yourself in a position to, you know, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, my first experience, you know, thought I knew everything. Got in that position, probably didn't do everything right, probably didn't do everything as somebody as Darren at 44 would, but you know what? Like, I did my best and I got through it, and that was an arrow in my quiver that I took later on through life that allowed me to, you know, lead a bunch of people, to have the trust of another bunch of people in the same way that you did back when we were all in our mid 20s. And the other thing I'll say real quick, one of the most amazing things about all the people, some of the people that I spoke about at the beginning, we have, you know, we had a group, Toyota back in the day. Well, overall, how many people were you leading? 25?
Yeah, it was around 20 something.
20 something people. The careers of the folks all over the country and the world right now, of the people on that team, like guys like Neil, guys like Sal, guys like Tara, guys like Hank, like the people that, you know, Sadie, like the people that got their start right there, that were all working together. Like that team, if you look at it back then to see where people are 20 years later, it was a dynamo. It's crazy.
We were
Dynamo.
lucky.
Yeah, I mean,
We were lucky.
and had a lot of good people who not only were very talented at what they did, but like amazing people. Like we had so much fun together.
We did.
So thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. This was awesome to catch up.
Great to see you.
Yes, thank you. I am super old now, super gray, way grayer
Oh,
than I
you're not
used
as
to
old
be.
as I am, cowboy.
Well, that's just a product of birth years. But again, I want to say thank you. To me, I more than anything, I want to say a heartfelt debt of gratitude to you for putting up with me as a 20-something-year-old and for teaching me the things that you did, because you helped me be the person I am today. You played a part in that, and I don't want to discount that. So thank you so much for the person that you are and for all that you've meant. A heartfelt homage to you, Ava Jordhamo, and thank you for taking the time today. And anybody who's out there, I'm just going to plug you. Take a look, Google Ava, and you'll see an amazing woman who's had an amazing career and brought others up with her to go on to have amazing careers as well. So
You're
thank
too
you so
kind. Thank you, and congratulations to you. You very sweet.
Thank you. Thank you. So
right. Be well. Love to Samantha and the kids.
I will say hi to Jason, and stay out of trouble.
I'll try. I'll try. All right.
Ava, take care. See you later.
You too. Bye.
Bye.